Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive right in, because today we're looking at something truly fascinating. We are going to unpack exactly how the legendary poet Robert Frost managed to take a tiny, microscopic bug crawling across a piece of paper and transform it into a staggering philosophical commentary on existence, intelligence, and human power. We'll be drawing from several brilliant analyses of his poem A Considerable Speck, and we'll trace how a completely mundane moment at a writing desk turned into a profound exploration of life itself. Picture this. You sit down at your desk to write, and you notice a tiny speck, maybe about the size of a period, sitting right there on your blank manuscript. Now, at first, Frost thought it was just a piece of fluff blown across the page by his own breath, but then it moves. He realizes that this seemingly insignificant dot actually possesses a desperate, undeniable will to live. It was, just as the poem's title suggests, a considerable speck. And suddenly, he's faced with this incredible moral dilemma.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, a tiny desk drama.
We begin by zooming in tightly on a stark white piece of paper. You know, to us, it's just normal stationery, but Frost transforms that blank expanse into this dramatic, almost theatrical stage. This brief, somewhat comedic incident starts with Frost just idly holding his pen in the air. He's ready to bring the ink down, but he suddenly realizes the speck he's about to crush isn't dust at all. It's a living mite. It's what the source material brilliantly calls a godlike accidente on a white page. He's hovering there like a giant, a human god, possessing the absolute power to annihilate the struggling little entity with just the mere touch of a finger or a single drop of ink. Now, mapping the mite's erratic journey across the page is really where this story comes alive. We get this fascinating sequence of testing, recoiling, and choosing, which proves this creature is acting on its very own volition. First, it pauses in suspicion of the looming pen. Then, it races wildly across the dry, desert-like expanse of the paper. Next, it encounters the still wet ink of Frost's last written line, what one analyst describes as an alien lake of wetness, and it absolutely loathes it, seemingly smelling or drinking it before instantly turning to flee. Finally, totally exhausted and terrified, it just cowers down in pure desperation.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mind Written in Terror.
What's genuinely fascinating about this next phase of the explainer is how Frost proves the mite's intelligence. And he does it not through calm calculation, but through its sheer, undeniable panic. Frost brilliantly observes that fear doesn't actually cancel out a creature's intelligence. Just listen to this quote. It ran with terror, and with cunning crept. That cunning hesitation, those panic zigzags, the way it falters and evaluates its surroundings, those are the clearest possible signatures of a mind at work. It's a real mix of amusement and awe from Frost as he watches another mind unexpectedly right itself in motion right there on his page. The poet meticulously catalogs all these minute emotional reactions, right? Suspicion of the pen, dread and loathing of the ink, cunning in its creeping, and of course an overpowering, desperate desire to avoid death. By doing this, he's showing us that this microscopic entity actually shares the exact same survival instincts a human being would experience if we were placed in a proportionately terrifying situation. It really is a breathtaking study in consciousness, literally shrunk down to the size of a period.
So, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, the crucial point is that these aren't just random jitters or basic mechanical reflexes. Fronston's intense attention reveals that the mite has inclinations it can truly call its own. Its hesitation and its deliberate choices create a very real pattern. And once the speaker recognizes that intelligence, it demands ethical consideration. You simply can't treat the creature like a speck of dirt anymore once you realize it's making a purposeful, calculated response to the world around it.
Which brings us to Section 3, the power of the pen.
As the tiny mite finally stops running, completely exhausted out there in the middle of the open sheet, we hit a profound shift in the narrative. The writer's pen stops being just a simple writing tool and suddenly becomes an instrument of absolute, unyielding authority. Frost writes that he idly poised his pen to stop it with a period of ink. That poised pen serves as this heavy, undeniable symbol of human power, hovering menacingly over a tiny life that absolutely never consented to be part of the poet's sentence.
Let's dig into the poetic forensics for a second to see exactly how Frost builds this incredible tension. First, the pen symbolizes ultimate fate and authority. He also uses personification, granting the little mite human-like dread and suspicion. Then there's the visual imagery, that stark, intense contrast of the black speck on the vast white desert of the page. And finally, the beautiful irony of the whole situation. Here is Robert Frost, a great, celebrated philosophical thinker, completely humbled by the intelligence of a microscopic bug.
As things progress, the language shifts and becomes almost legalistic. The mite cowers down to accept whatever fate is accorded to it. And this exposes a really uncomfortable truth, doesn't it? What is simply a casual, routine desk habit for a writer could easily be an absolute apocalypse for another living being. The power structure here is just immense, and the speaker's role shifts in a flash from casual spectator to a judge holding the ultimate power of life and death.
All right, shifting gears a bit for Section 4, Rejecting Collectivistic Love.
This brings us to a surprisingly political and social swerve in the poem. Frost zooms way out from the microscopic drama on the desk to offer a critique of modern social movements. Impartially analyzing the text, we see Frost setting up a stark contrast between two very different types of empathy. On one side, he points to the fashionable, organized, forced compassion of society, and on the other, he presents his own narrow, highly individual and specific mercy for this one single mite.
Frost puts it pretty bluntly. He proudly states, "I have none of the tenderer-than-thou, collectivistic, regimenting love with which the modern world is being swept." Basically, he is completely rejecting what he sees as mindless conformity and theoretical, programmatic pity. He doesn't pretend to love mites in theory. Instead, he opts for a very practical, awkward kind of mercy, choosing to let this specific mite live simply because he knows no evil of it.
It's a pretty unsettling but incredibly honest realization. The mite isn't spared because of some grand, sweeping moral program or ideology. It's spared on the purely pragmatic basis that it hasn't actually caused any harm. It's a mercy based entirely on innocence, which leaves us with a somewhat uncomfortable idea that recognizing a mind might be common, but actually showing restraint and mercy, well, that's highly contingent.
And finally, we wrap up with Section 5, Any Display of Mind.
Here, we zoom out completely from the physical encounter on the paper to the massive philosophical exhilaration of the poem's conclusion. Philosophically speaking, the speck acts as a microcosm. Our sources actually reference Ralph Waldo Emerson here, who famously said that the world globes itself in a drop of dew. The speck is a powerful reminder that we humans are just another part of an immense scale of evolving beings in the universal macrocosm. Just as we look down at the mite, there are likely gigantic beings out there in the universe to whom we seem just as tiny. And yet, the same essentials of existence, fear, cunning, that desperate desire to live, they're mirrored perfectly at every single scale. Frost ends his poem not with a sense of pity, but with this blunt, almost proud joy. He writes, "No one can know how glad I am to find on any sheet the least display of mind." He finds this totally unexpected kinship and companionship across an unbelievable difference in physical scale. It's almost like a confession of a writer's loneliness, right? He's completely thrilled to realize that his blank manuscript page is suddenly being shared by another thinking, processing entity.
To summarize our explainer today, Frost uses this incredibly mundane moment at a writing desk to champion individualism, a deep respect for life, and the undeniable value of independent thought, no matter how microscopic it might happen to be. He teaches us that any mind, however alien it seems, creates a real ethical demand upon us. He shows that true intelligence is far more valuable than blind, collectivized obedience, and he proves, without a doubt, that absolutely nothing is truly too small in the grand scale of universal life.
I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. If a terrified, microscopic speck of a bug can display a mind worthy of our mercy, our kinship, and our absolute awe, well, how often are we entirely overlooking the profound depths of the everyday moments right in front of us? The next time you sit down at a blank desk or stare at a piece of white paper, keep your eyes open. You might just find the entire universe globing itself in the smallest, most considerable details. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.